let's do a new improvement on our damper. So the following task, we want to, or I will describe the result. I want to click somewhere here, like on a clicking area. And if I click on that, the system should represent a new panel in a new window, showing me the trend of the actual value. Okay, so if you think about that, how should we proceed? What has to be done first? So we will simply use a rectangle, make it transparent, and we will move it to another layer than one to be able to activate and deactivate it, because we have overlapping objects. That's right. So let's go ahead and let's take care about this new panel. So the trend which will be shown is in a separated panel, and because it cannot live alone, we will do it also in a separated folder which has the name object parts. So what we have to do is, you can go into in your Explorer and create here a new folder named object parts, or you can do it by going under panels and add a new folder and name it object parts. So more or less you will find also here in the version this object parts folder, and we will store their references which refer to an other reference. So it's more or less a reference which needs an calling reference to guarantee functionality. And now let's create a new panel. You can create it here and then you say save panel as, or you can also directly click on the object parts folder and say add a new panel, and let's name it trend ref for reference. Here we are. Let's open it and let's take a size, let's say 400 to 300, like that, up to you. That will be the trend size. Let's do 320, so 20 pixels more, because we will also implement a closing button here in the case that you maybe have this closing and minimize buttons deactivated in your project. And then let's take here that trend icon on the third icon bar. Let's draw that, and we will go directly here into a little wizard. So we have value over time, that's okay. Horizontal orientation also. Logarithmic, handle with care. Nobody understands logarithmics and exponentials, so easy going for the trend. Let's say okay. Then the system is asking for a data point element which should be drawn. So we will go here to the damper. Let's take simply D1, response and act value. Let's say okay. And let's take here a $DP, for example. $DP, easy going, but can also be a a dollar trend. That is also possible. So it don't have to be necessarily the dollar DP, it can be any name. Because think about that you will not engineer the project completely on yourself. Think about you will have a team and you have different work packages, so it can be that one team member will create the trend panel and one team member will create the damper panel, and maybe they did not talk about how should be the naming convention for the dollar parameter. So anyway, we can deal here with our own dollar parameter, because by the function to call then the trend panel, there is in the function a mapping included, which has to be done, right? Also, if we are dealing with the same dollar parameter name, there it also has to be done by the syntax. So I will take here the dollar trend. Let's say okay. Then I will name the curve type. So this is the actual value. We can also move this parameterization dialog to the right, so we see also here a little preview of what we are configuring. So we are dealing with a linear curve. The point type can be taken, but in our case of the act value, it's not a good idea, because we have DP sets every single increment. So if I take an X or plus or an O, it will result in a thick line. In that case, I will simply say none. Also, a filling is not taken in that case, so I also skip that here. Here we have a panel which have two tabs, a lower tab and a tab on the top, where the lower tab is part of the curve tab. So let's go from the common to scale to finish the configuration, and then let's take care about the other ones here. So the representation of the legend, I will stay on that. The value should be visible, auto format, everything is good. I also will not do a grid, but if you want to do a grid, feel free, define the number of lines and all that stuff. And if you want to use the grid, you have to activate the grid here, draw grid on the common tab in addition. But we skip that, going to the scale. And out of the box, everything is on auto scale, which is nice and covers all the cases, but not very good looking. So I will therefore say that we are going from 0 to 100, indicated by this figure. Use the enter key on the keyboard to get the input. And you can see now that the scale will go from 0 to 100. Then let's go to the common tab. We will not draw the grid, but we will rearrange the time scale, because 2 hours it will be a frame which is too large. So let's do here 2 minutes and 0 hours. Okay. The rest can stay on default, so we can close this dialog, and we'll now move the trend on the same coordinates as the panel itself. So we will go to position 0 and 0 here. Then we will change the size to 400 and 300. And now we will also implement here at the bottom a button. So we will take here the push button from the icon bar, drawing here a button also with positions starting at 300, and here it's 400 to 20, like that here. Let's rename the label, so I will do something like that here, close. And now let's do some code on it. So we take the clicking event, opening the script editor, and write simply panel off. And that's it. We can also test that. So in the quick test, the trend shows us that there is no real connection to a data point. That's true because we are dealing with a dollar parameter. But if I click on close, it will simply close the window. Let's go ahead to our damper reference. Here we will now take the rectangle and we will draw the rectangle overlaying the damper object, and then let's move the layer, so that will be layer number 2. So we can deactivate that, then mark it again and do here the background color. Take the radio button here, transparent, say OK. And also the foreground color, transparent, OK. And now we can see how invisible objects look like. So we have this purple dotted line, and generated our clicking area. So we want to click on that, and the trend should therefore open. So we need a clicking event. Let's go. Yeah. I mark the rectangle, and here in the property editor you see the background color and the foreground color, and on both I opened here the color selector and said transparent. So let's choose the event, clicked. Let's do it with the wizard. In that case, we are dealing here with a panel function. Let's say next. We want to open a panel in a new module. Also next here. Panel file. Let's open that here. Going to the objects parts folder. Rearranging the file type. And take the trend reference panel over here. Let's say open. Then a panel name would be useful. So let's name it trend column dollar trend. And here you can see dollar trend to dollar trend, and you have the possibility to change that to dollar DP. update that. So that's now our valid mapping from $TP to $trend. Not sure right now if we can use $trend. Let's try that. Can be that we have to write also $TP in here. Not sure at this stage. So let's go on next. Let's do a child panel, which is a new panel rising up. And let's also do it relative to the calling object, shifted to the right, for example, on 300 pixels. Be carefully with the other options. If the panel always is on top, we are talking about the modal mode, and so we are not allowed to make more instances at the same time from the trend. So let's deactivate that here and let's say finish. So let's test that. I would go to the overview panel here. Let's do a quick test. Let's click here on damper D1 and you can see we have here the trend panel, and we can also draw in here. In here we can see the title, and there is trend column, and there is not the right data point in here. That was the thing I mentioned before. We have to exchange here $DP instead of $trend. So we have to take the original dollar parameter, and after that, if I now make a quick test, you can see we are here we have also trend column D1. And if we have here the dynamic part or a dollar parameter, then we can also open the trend in parallel for all the dampers, because WinCCOA always needs unique names here, unique title names. You can also see that if we open the para, to realize that para 191, para 193, to guarantee that you have always a unique name in here. So here comes the next task. Implement in addition the set point on the trend to see also the the set point in blue color, and to measure the time which is taken if we go from open to close. So in that case, let's go to the trend reference, double click on the trend and go here to append. So we want to append a second curve in here. Take the data point selector, go to D1, now command and set point, and instead of that again make a $trend and say OK. Name the curve set point. Blue color is here automatically. We can now, using a point type like this X, for example. If you want, you can also take the the steps instead of linear, up to you. Then the scale, you can see that there is a different scale or a new scale for the second curve. So we will also take here and change the auto scale from 1 to 100, that we are dealing here with the same scales. And the time scale will in any way will be the same for both. So that stays, everything good, and close. Let's save it and let's test it. We stopped here on that trend, so we can see now here opening and closing. And if you go inside with your mouse and you use the mouse wheel, you will zoom in and zoom out. And if you click inside, a ruler will appear, and if you hold the shift key, a second ruler will rise up, and now you can do measurements. So for example, if I look here, then let's go back. So I go here, I do the measurement to here, second one, stupid box, second one here, and more or less I'm around 3 seconds opening time, right? Okay, so measurements can be done. You can also do it in parallel here. And also recognize if you do here the trend, then you open and close that, and if you close the trend, then the data is gone, right? So you only can draw the current data. It has to work like that because out of the box this data is not stored in a historical way. That is the main reason why we cannot see the data over here after closing and reopening. So if we want to realize that, we have to open the para, go to our master data point on response, for example, and we have to insert a power config, and that will be an archive setting. Also, do not do it fixed. Let's say OK and continue. And here simply, and all that related to archiving, Matthias will introduce that tomorrow. We will simply right now only activate that, send it to the archive group, which is preloaded, and simply say OK and yes, and apply these configs. And we can also do it for the input, for example, here the command set point, also here insert power config, archive, say OK, continue, activate it, say OK, yes, and go for it. So if I now make a quick test and I start painting here, and I closed it now. And if I reopen it, we can see the data is loaded. And if I go back in time, it will then load the data which comes from the influx database in the case. So the trend will always only load the visualization area, simply to do not load unnecessary data.